So hello everybody. I'm extremely happy that we are in this wonderful group with two excellent artists as our guests and also my very good friends and with whom we already collaborated on our exhibitions and the symposium of Glowing Globe, and also before I think also before. So Joanna Hoffmann from Poland, but living in Berlin and working between two cities, two countries. She will explain more about her. And Mechtild Schmidt, German, who is living since many years in New York. Nevertheless, this is occasion that we can get together and that we can experience in this wonderful way all across sea and countries and Europe and America hear their presentation, and then we can discuss on the basis of two of your works, and we can involve ourselves with our thoughts and questions and so on. So as I think we spoke before, Mechthild, you will be the first one. So please, you can share your screen.
Okay, first of all, thank you so much, Ingeborg, for inviting me. I actually really like this very environmental way of traveling virtually rather than spending all the pollution to fly through the world for a meeting somewhere for 2 or 3 days. So I'll get started. You already heard my environmental undertones of what I just said. My name is Mechtild Schmidt. I'm also an expat Berliner, and I visit there regularly. And that's how I know Ingeborg and hope to get to know Johanna. My work the past maybe about 10 years has been under the umbrella term of engaged media. And I look for approaches where art can help inspire and motivate people for some change, local change, for more sustainable life. I'm not saying that what I do can change whatever governments do or what corporations do, but I'm very much a believer in awareness, how we all, the billions of us on this planet, contribute to climate change and how we can change small things in our lives. And if we do that with millions of us, I believe we can make a difference. So engaged media always approaches topics that are environmental, and the project that I want to talk about today is Tree Story, about an ecological approach in India. I was a Fulbright fellow there last year. Unfortunately, it was cut short by COVID, but I was there long enough to do my research and to come back with a project that lives online anyway. So I didn't go there thinking, I will not read all this. So I think you can read that on your own. So I went to India not knowing exactly what I was going to do, because I figured the last thing they need is somebody from Germany or from the US coming with a big idea telling them what to do. So I wanted to find out, what is it that people there do? What is it that people may need? Where would I fit in? So I searched pretty widely at several different environmental initiatives, and that would take a long time to talk about. If you are interested, I can show you at another time my India blog on my website that talks about all the different people I met and the initiatives and the artists I met and so on. So to make that shorter, I arrived at this topic of trees and the many meanings that trees have in religion, in science, in medicine, the kind of relationship that we humans have with trees, and of course the biological relationship also, what trees are used for, what they give to us, to other animals, to the environment. And then I looked at all this respect we bring to trees, and then the very disrespectful way we're treating trees or that are being cut down. So in this case, here you see some loved and some unloved trees. I was in the city of Bangalore working with Shrishti, that's a local art school there, wonderful art school that where almost every topic has an environmental aspect in the different arts that they cover. It was really astounding. So I looked at that, and then we looked at this subway project. What happens is Bangalore is a city of 13 million people and didn't have a subway. The pollution, the traffic is just unimaginable. So they really needed a subway, and they have like one very large cross, basically north, south, east, west. But for financial reasons or whatever reasons, they decided to have like 90% of the stations above ground. And instead of trying to protect the neighborhood, they just went sort of crazy, cutting down all these avenue trees that were actually helping to make the air better, to cool the cement. And you see on the left here um, a statistic you can see on Google Earth. I will demonstrate it later, where there used to be trees, and all the circles are all these trees just around one subway station where they got cut. The park on the right here is the Lalbagh Botanical Garden, an old Mughal emperor garden that was enlarged by the British when they were there. They were It was basically an experimental ground to import trees and to see how they're faring in this different climate. And so they had a lot of fruit trees, avenue trees, blooming trees, and they're wonderfully cared for. And just outside the wall, it looks like this photo here, the third one, is at the wall of that botanical garden. Behind there, the eucalyptus trees are inside the park, and this one that has basically no room to live with trash around it is just outside the wall. This here on the right side is a tree inside. So there's this discrepancy of the wonderfully treated trees inside and the ones outside that on top of that got all cut off. So my project was like, well, there were a lot of protests from the communities, but that didn't help. The trees got cut down anyway. So I thought, okay, maybe how I can fit into those protests and do something. The trees are gone now, but what can we do? So I thought, how can we make people more aware of what there really is and what could be? So I imagined those trees actually taking an initiative, those trees in that botanical garden, and said, see, these are all the things what we do. This is what I can do for you. And I, the tree in the garden who is so privileged, send over seeds to you people in the street, and we're replanting. Of course, it's fictive. We're replanting the trees along this avenue line. So we started actually preparing this with some other projects. There were several student projects around the subway, and this is inside the subway station. And these were the people I collaborated with. They were doing different projects. I was doing mine, and I was hoping to involve some students. That was before COVID. So, but we still were online together, but the physical project did not happen. This is a mock-up of some of the installation I was going to do. But this is what the project looks like online. And I want to show that to you, and I will show it to you in a new share. If you're interested in more of this, I can also post the links for you. Hold on. I can do that later. I can post the links in the chat, and then you can look on your own. So let me do a new share. And I will go to Google Earth now and show you the project. Oh, it didn't. Hold on. I will stop the share and then do it again. There. Can you all see Google Earth?
Yes.
Right now? Okay. So I use Google Earth to put in overlays and to put in these projects for people to go in there and browse around there by themselves. And here on the left side is there's an introduction, and there are also some links there, and then we can dive in there we can take the view into, you can do it yourself, or you can use the buttons that bring you right to the right place. We're zooming into Bangalore, and we're zooming into that forest that you just saw. So I'll go through the clouds. You see all these quotes. There, some of them are quotes from people from the East and the West. I try to look at different philosophers and artists and people that are engaged to put some quotes in there, that it's not just Western centric and also not just Indian centric. Then I looked up all the different properties that these trees have, and I took hundreds of photographs, and then I layered photographs of the seeds, of the leaves here, and added them. So when I zoom back out a little bit, you see this is the subway line. And so I basically took trees from here. I looked at the locations, so they go directly over to where they're replanted along this subway line. I will turn some of them off so it's a little easier to see. So you can see this tree is over in this area, and I said, replanted it there. What you can then do is you can control click the tree and get some info on the tree. So it tells you more about, let's say this tree is used for Ayurvedic medicines. I don't know if you can see the pop-up, if that's part of
Yes.
the share. Do you see
Yes.
that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great. So, and it tells you what this tree is used for, basically saying this is not just decoration. This tree helps us, so let him live. And you can actually go in there, you can research, you can actually add your own notes. And so it would be lovely to find some notes in there, because this is just a very short introduction. And then you can turn on the other trees and read about them. And you see every time a part pops up with more information about those trees. And if I turn this all off, you can look at the timeline, and then you will see the difference in tree cover. If I go back on the historical timeline, it takes a moment to refresh. I think it doesn't like the Zoom plus Google Earth. It's a bit slow. Oh well, you can go in there yourself. You can still see it here. You can see the tree cover. There was no subway line. This is 2000. And if we go down to, I think, 2013 or so, it started, it was under construction. They started cutting down the trees and building the subway. You can see the raw tracks are there and the trees are already gone. So this is basically a competition between a subway that in itself is also an environmental necessity, but in order to have that subway there, they destroyed what beautiful things of the environment they did have there, and that is a problem. So I will share quickly my website if you want to know more about it. So here's the whole tree story on mechtildschmidtfeist.com. And this is a pre-recorded zoom into Google Earth that we just saw. If you want to do it yourself, you just click the KMZ file here. It leads you to another page. You download it, and then you get the file that you drop into Google Earth, and you can do it your own. And then you can browse around there. More information about it. I have some stills here. One is behind me, as you can see. And you can turn all the layers on and off. That way you can read it better. This is basically what I had in my presentation. This is some of my researched, some of the leaves that are there that I looked at, and what is inside Lalbagh, what's outside Lalbagh. So um, this is one of my projects. If you're interested in more, I have more projects on the Engaged Media series there. And for this, I also have a blog. The India blog has 3 different parts. The first parts are about my research, and the third part is mostly about page 3, about Lalbagh and other artists that are working in similar with similar media and about nature. So you can read more about it. That was our farewell with Arzu, my Indian partner, and the whole class that she was teaching. So that's pretty much it for this project, and I hope to still do an animation and to work further on that project with some luck. The COVID situation in India has subsided a little bit. I'm considering going back and doing more on the project, but since whatever I'm doing on Google Earth, I'm actually independent of being there physically, and I have so much material that I can do a whole lot more. I have an animation started looking at these trees from below and imagine a conversation between them. So the whole idea was that I give these trees a sort of mythical persona, and they themselves initiate some change. Of course, they cannot do it, but by telling their story, I hope that some people may say, okay, we should care more for them. And I'm sure there's something that could be done on the ground, like working with community groups that are doing the protest, but because of COVID, I couldn't go further into that. That's pretty much what I have to say about my project, but you can ask me questions.
Thank you very much for the moment. I would like to ask you first, maybe. You showed your work about the refugee in a similar way last year on our Glowing Globe in Rijeka.
Yes.
And that was already for me fascinating because you have the whole story about one refugee and you show them over Google Earth and in the same way. How was the reception? Did you got kind of public reception on that case, or somebody who was like putting some emotion?
About the
Well,
refugee
both,
one,
whatever, because this work of
both.
art of yours is very unique, I think. Of course, there are many kind of researches in that and that way showing, but this way of artistically done with this philosophy thoughts, with this graphical wonderful design, because you are also graphic designer between others, and with all this artistic way how you are approaching that. I'm wondering whether you do notice that this would be the way more to appeal the broader public to understand the problematic and maybe to have some reactions. Just, if you have some experience in that way.
Yeah, I've presented this in 2 or 3 places, and I think the reaction has been very positive, especially looking at a tool that we all know, like Maps or Google Maps, but in this case, Google Earth. So using a platform that people know, but layering it was something new. And so you may
Yeah.
look at it in a different way than if you just zoom in. It gives it a different quality, and they like the idea that people can download it and look at it at their own pace. So it can be time-based if I record it and play it back, but people can also go in and look at it themselves and add something. What I have to say, people don't really add things. They do look at it
Mhm.
or they comment on it. I haven't really found yet something that people go in and say, oh, I found out something new about this tree, and I will add that to it. So I'll see. But actually, if they add it and make a version, they would have to publish it under the same name. Otherwise, I couldn't see it, so
That's very
they can do it.
interesting.
Yeah, they can do it privately for themselves, or they can say, here, I added something, and if I upload the version, then the version can be up there.
It's interesting because I think it's so rich what you already offer us as viewers or as somebody who could be involved, that maybe people don't want to destroy this kind of form that you already gave us. Just the idea, But,
I also usually I use this in different media. So if I make an animation, then that will just be a short movie. My animations are usually no longer than maybe 2 or 3 minutes or so. Or I print out some stills so you can actually hang it on the wall for some context, or it could become an installation of using some prints and using a projection. Or I had hoped for an exhibition at NYU where you have a computer there with Google Earth up and people can actually play around with it, but nobody's allowed inside NYU unless they have an NYU ID or they're students or faculty. So it doesn't really make much sense to have an exhibition there because there's almost no traffic. So when COVID is behind us, if ever, I hope I can have an exhibition there.
well, it would be kind of halfway, never ending, but we have to learn to live, and maybe halfway. I mean,
At
you will
least we
still,
have the internet in the interim. I
yes,
have
but
Google
I
Earth.
think, as I know you will find your way to travel. Maybe next year you come to Rijeka, as we said.
I'm planning to come to Berlin next summer, so who knows? Then
Okay.
I'm already not so far from here, Rijeka.
No. Okay, well, for the moment, I just want to ask anybody want in this point who have more question about the technical approach or problematic, or if not, we can come back again on that point. Nobody have at the moment wish to ask something, because we can later on discuss exactly this problematic of ecology, and I think this is something that we might also follow partly this idea of our own project. So thank you very much. At the moment, we will give a word to our next artist today, and professor and PhD and post-PhD and so on, Joanna Hoffmann. So please, Joanna, you are very welcome to join us with your presentation, please.
Thank you, Ingeborg, and I'm really, really grateful for you to inviting me to participate in this excellent international program in the frame of UFA network, and for the fascinating presentation of Mechthild. In fact, I was 10 years ago for 3 months at Srishti, so I was
yes.
really like, yes. Oh. So I think that we have more in common than we thought before.
Okay.
So I will share my screen and share screen. Oops, I have to come now when I once again everything was working before, so I hope that it will work now.
We tried it. Don't worry.
Yeah, I think that you can see it. Yeah.
Yes.
So I will stay around the subject of trees, and I think that all of us have a special relation to some tree or the trees in general. And in fact, oops, this is not the full screen. Yeah, full screen now. Okay. And in fact, these are fascinating creatures, and of course, we share deep molecular connections. We belong to the same, let's say, orchestra, the same genetic symphony founded on 4 basic notes, ACGT, common for all life on Earth. Nevertheless, looking from a human perspective, a tree is for us an alien. Yeah? It lives in a different scale of time than us. different scale of space, with different senses and energy sources. And yet, as Mechthild underlined, the trees are extremely important part of our natural and also cultural heritage. The longevity of trees make them a symbol of life and persistence, of generosity and of inner connections, a symbol of ties linking man with his natural and social environment, ties that create common ground also between us here. And though I am based in Berlin, I am teaching at the University of Arts in Poznan. I don't know why I have to go in this way through my slides, but nevertheless. And Poland is a very special place because it's a cradle of Poland. So the first kings are buried in our cathedral. But just 20 kilometers away, there's the oldest oak in Poland named Rus, over 100 years old, over 9 meters in circumference. And Rus is the oak in three, in fact, oaks, Lechce and Rus, which belongs to the old legend about the Slavian tribes. Of course, they are not only our natural, but also cultural heritage. And such long-lived sessile organisms must survive in the face of wide dangers coming from abiotic and biotic threats over their lifespans. And you can see the Czech in the middle, it's the tree in the middle, looks almost dead. There are no leaves, no signs of life, but the reality is really very different. And we can say that, in fact, the tree does not have roots. It has a rhizosphere, or you can say it's a part of a rhizosphere. So the rhizosphere, it's a vast network formed by roots and rhizomes together with mycorrhizal fungi and bacteria. And it is there where the exchange of resources and goods takes place. A rhizosphere network is called Wood Wide Web. And this Wood Wide Web is based on symbiosis, diversity, and interdependence. And these networks enable plants to develop and spread and to survive even in very unfavorable conditions. In fact, this symbiosis enabled plants to leave water environment and to conquer lands. And rhizosphere operating system, say next, is based on a model of small worlds network, and its effectiveness, measured in many thousands of years, inspires us to search for organizational and also organizational solutions and strategies that would favor sustainable development and more efficient distribution of resources, information, and knowledge. More efficient and fair than we have today in our locally and globally locked systems. So the research on the plant communication system dramatically changes our understanding of natural processes. And it raises also important philosophical questions. For example, about where species begin and end, or whether the forest can be perceived rather as a superorganism or meta-organism than the grouping of individual entities. Even the term organism requires new definition. When you look at Wikipedia, we learn that an organism is the entity, living entity, characterized by life processes, mainly metabolism, the component of which form a functional whole, individual, capable of independent living. But it is, in fact, a lie, a scientific incorrectness, because an organism, a living entity, is neither a set of parts or organs, nor capable of living independently. In fact, an organism is a network of various relations, positive, negative, and with various organisms belonging to different worlds. And we are also such organisms. So we have to change our thinking. We live through other lives, just like a tree. And today we are more and more aware that our reality, the structure of our reality, is based on dynamic interactive networks of data flows, from neural networks to the World Wide Web, from river backwaters to social, economic, and cultural phenomena. And next, most of us knows this famous image, the Tree of Life, illustrating also the famous book by Charles Darwin, The Origin of Species. And definitely Darwin made a great job. However, it is hard not to notice the disastrous cultural consequences of his and his publisher's perspective, expressed in the under-title of his famous book, Preservation of the Favored Races in the Struggle for Life. So this sentence, this preservation of the favored races in the struggle for life, not only consolidated the image of man as a crown of an evolutionary tree, but also it introduced the understanding of the meaning of life as a struggle for survival. And if it is a struggle, a deadly competition, then care only for yourself. And if you are the winner, you dictate the rules, becoming the measurement and the center of the world. And it is not difficult, with of course big simplification, to see how the enlightened anthropocentrism, enhanced by Darwin perspective, brought us to the today's state of Anthropocene and our tribal conflicts. But we know today that evolutionary processes has nothing to do with the classical metaphor of a tree, as recent discoveries of horizontal gene transfer show. So we have to create new cultural narratives, redefine our place in a big web of life. And if you want to survive, you have to open our closed systems to search for new solutions and prospects based not on greed and deadly competition, but on cooperation, symbiosis, diversity, and interdependence, just as the Wood Wide Web tell us. So the research on rhizosphere and the Wood Wide Web started also my project, Rise on Papilla. So sorry for this long introduction, but I was thinking that it is very important. So as an artist, I imagine the whole world as a rhizosphere, a growing, interconnected, non-hierarchical system, the future world where organic and inorganic intelligent systems will be combined into a new hybrid quality. So on one hand side, the project refers to the intensive development of the Internet of Everything and research on AGI, artificial general intelligence, but on the other hand side to symbiotic network strategies of plants as an alternative model of an effective social ecosystem. So the big network of small worlds based on diversity, symbiosis, and interdependence in which our smallest actions, even our thoughts, may affect the well-being of the whole. So my art project is developed in VR and AR technologies. So I didn't know how to present it, so I somehow merged it together in slides, and I hope that will work. So let's see. And so when you enter the work, you place yourself in the horizon, and you become surrounded by the imaginative mycelium web of human settlements, cities, roads, merged with root system. And within this environment, you can see the circular cloudy formations, which I called papillas. And so this papillas, in fact, starts from chaotic fragments of visual information, and then it forms more complex multi-layer information network in which the boundaries between micro and macro, organic and abstract, between internal and external data processing is blurred. And the name Papilla derived from biological nodular formation, often associated with senses of touch, like our papilla lines, but also taste of smell. So very often we have this this nodular formation which enhance the signal transfer. But also to the root nodule, which is the organ of symbiosis between plant roots and bacteria, rhizobia, which give plants nitrogen in exchange for carbon. So in my piece, Papilla can be perceived as a microcomponent, a symbiotic organ of the future hybrid omnisystem system. And so just some stills from this virtual environment, and the end of this narrative, let's say, or its formation, Papilla turns into a kind of virtual eye, and through this, its pupil, the viewer enters the outside space, the net of rhizosphere, of VR immersive environment application, and of course in AR version you can activate this horizon Papilla in any space, and it was also part of the AR exhibition Augmented Species, Invasive Sculptures and Hybrid Ecologies, organized by MoMAR, and that was actually an international so-called AR touring exhibition, but it was present in many places because this AR technology really allows you to be in many places at the same time, let's say. So the exhibition reached really a lot of sculpture gardens and museums, with open space exposure. So just a few examples from MoMA and also National Gallery in Berlin and our Tiergarten. And I would like just to show you a teaser of, I don't know why I could not go to the videos, but maybe now it comes.
Joanna, we don't see the video.
You don't see the video?
No, maybe you have to switch off and on, sharing sometimes. We just see one image, one photo.
I will maybe
Now try again only video. This happens sometimes.
Okay.
No?
Can you see it now?
I know it happens sometimes. I don't know why. Sometimes you stop sharing and again sharing.
Okay.
Something like that. And then just video.
Share screen. Let's share screen.
Now
Do you
could
see my
be,
screen?
it's again this image. Now it is there.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
There is no sound, I suppose.
Yeah, there's sound, but you probably don't hear this.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it happens somehow, sometimes by Zoom. I don't know how I can solve that.
Maybe you can send us link later. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can just to because it's very difficult to show the
yes
VR and AR.
yes,
So,
very, well, no problem, but we see visuals.
Yeah, at least something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we'll come back to the presentation. Okay.
Yes.
So, in fact, this artistic project is part of the larger kind of a set of works that I'm working on, but also a part of the complex art science education project, Rhizosphere, the big network of small worlds, which I started around 4 years ago. So it comes from derived from cooperation between the Studio for Transdisciplinary Project and Research that I'm running at the University of Arts in Poznań and the Faculty of Biology of Adam Mickiewicz University in my city. In fact, we have been collaborating already for 10 years, but that was one of, and it is the project which we are continuing up till now. And in fact, the network of Rhizosphere it's actually growing all the time and incorporating new institutions, artists, scientists, and of course, students. And the, let's say, germ of Rhizosphere, in fact, was a student artistic project, Mycorrhizator, by Maria Subczyńska, which was inspired by research on mycorrhiza and symbiosis of roots and fungi. And over time, Mycorrhizator took form of an expanding interactive installation, which was the basics of many interdisciplinary workshops and artistic and educational activities. And it inspired also cooperation in the frame of a European twinning program. It is a program for schools promoting more holistic STEAM method of education, science, bridging science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. And in this STEAM methodology, which is more holistic approach, art is playing a very important role, being kind of a link in between different disciplines. So as a part of Rhizosphere, schools in Poland, Portugal, and Turkey carry out an international education project, wide networking, the view of plants and fungi. And kids from different backgrounds and cultures develop a joint project to learn about their local ecosystems, but also learn new communication technologies and of course develop social skills. So it's very important to touch this education through different, let's say, levels. Because the project of this Rhizosphere, the big network of small worlds, was born out of the need to open close academic structures. The need to communicate, to exchange knowledge and experience, and to pursue also curiosity. But looking in a wider perspective also to pursue the growing responsibility for our future. So the basis of the project is close collaboration between artistic and scientific milieus. We organized workshops, lectures, seminars, symposia, and of course exhibitions to raise ecological awareness and to propose this new cultural and social narrative that I spoke at the beginning. So these are just a few examples of diversity of artwork produced by students and also graduates. And our last exhibition in this frame of Rhizosphere was organized by Art and Science Node, which I am chair of, based in Berlin, in the form of virtual exhibition, Capture the Futures, Our Biotech Planet, the Roots to Root Networks and Beyond at the Plant Biology Europe Congress in June of this year. And in fact, the exhibition joined two projects, Rhizosphere, the big network of small worlds, with ISN Artists in Residence program at CHIC Consortium. It is a EU-funded Horizon 2020 project. And of course, due to COVID-19 restrictions concerning physical display, it could not make the physical exhibition with all the artists, which here we have the artists from the CHIC project, which join our Rhizosphere network. So we created the visual exhibition in the form of the website and also innovative AR augmented reality application. And the digital model of a root, as you see, devoid of hierarchical order and a specific direction of growth, is the interface of the exhibition. So virtual root has interactive nodules in nature organs, as I said, of symbol of symbiosis between plants or bacteria. And each of these nodules opens up a different world of an artistic narrative. So the website offers to enter the root interface and discover artistic work hidden in kind of a maze of roots, which are grouped in 4 areas: hybrid realities, living systems, tracing links, and shifting horizon. And of course, there's no time here to present all 14 artworks, starting with a Jill Scott Aftertaste, Molecular Orchestra. The piece focuses on the interaction between human beings and environment on the molecular level. Very interesting art piece, or Drifting Particle by Jadwiga Subczyńska about the intelligent substance that evolved from bioplastic and biotechnological waste. But I would like to show you again a very short teaser of this exhibition to give you some idea. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, perfect. So of course, as I said, in a version can place the virtual root in any chosen space and experience artworks in various environments. So you can plant a blue flower, evoking concept by Wolfgang Goethe of the first plant, Urpflanze, in the age of biotechnological revolution. Yeah, or let's see, in Regnum Animale, you can reflect on endangered biodiversity and our attitude to so-called wild nature. This is actually the collection from the Polish Academy of Sciences Museum. Or I follow a virtual root interface. Or discover interplanetary plants of the future. So among artworks, you can also find my project, Rhizome Papilla, as well as another artwork, Vitruvian Woman poem. And this work is also related to another long-term project, Vitruvian Woman, which is an imaginative, holistic entity that recalls Renaissance tradition of humanisty, exploring relation between human being and the universe. So Vitruvian Woman AR poem draws an imaginative thread through time, space, and body. And it is designed as a, in fact, AR performance piece for a solo performer, user of AR of app, combining text, sound, image, and movement. So that's a fragment of this AR piece. So coming back to the exhibition, of course, I would like very much to invite you to the exhibition website, where you can find also links to AR apps and accompanying events. You can also download the app directly from Apple Store for iOS and Google Play for Androids. And so Rhizosphere, the big network of small worlds, steadily grows its inter-academic and interdisciplinary network, connecting various institutions, artists, scientists, and it is open. So I hope that you will join our projects too. And what is actually very important for me, that from the project inspired by Rhizosphere, it becomes a Rhizosphere itself. And through this project, you can also express our asset mission about bringing art, science, society, education, and technology. And this project, for me, it's so important because it proves that art can be a significant source and ground for deep cultural and systemic changes. And I guess in Rijeka, like in Poland, the academic environment is very conservative in the structures. We have artistic universities separate from to create this, make this effort to bring all these creative, let's say, societies. And somehow to leave this comfort zone. And I think that we have a lot to learn from nature, creating new networks of communication, which will be not only the networks of information flow, but really of interactions. So as my friend Władysław Polcyn, biologist, said, it's high time that we will begin to follow examples which nature developed through years. So finishing my talk, I would like to come back to Rogalin and to our oldest oak. and to say that just some years ago, this oak was cloned, and now we have this little rose, which now is 5 years old and has exactly the same genotype as rose, which is over 800 years old. And we hope this little rose will live to the similar age. So I would like to finish with this slide my presentation, and thank you very much for attention.
Well, thank you, Joanna. That was really fascinating talk and presentation. But all the time, I cannot stop thinking how wonderful I put you together with Mechthild, because both of you somehow, without planning, showed something that you are starting from very small and natural, like a tree, and expanding to the global problematic, using actually our internets and media means and involvement, thinking of global, of others, of our life. So this is fascinating thought, and I'm really happy that this happened. And of course, coming directly to your work, I'm very happy that you presented that, because even though we met sometimes in Berlin and spoke about things together, but this overview, the same as with Mechthild when she was in Zagreb once before our organization of Glowing Globe, you never come to this really overview how rich both of you work and how rich you think about things. And I really think we can really learn from your work, from both of you. And I'm very looking forward actually to continue searching with the students and myself on both of your works and trying to somehow grab pieces of this fantastic work. So not to speak all the time myself, I would be very happy if some of you would like to give any comments, question, thoughts, what is not mine.
I have a short question for Joanna. So we didn't heard the sound of your work, Papilla. So what is the soundscape about? Short.
I love the soundscape. It was not done by me, but my collaborator, Andrzej Bartecki. So it got really very rich levels of sound levels and data processing through sound. Well, I cannot describe it.
Well, we will.
Is it like abstract, like music?
It's abstract. It's not like the melodic thing, but it's very abstract sounds, like really kind of like metabolism of lot of information, and of course it's Andrzej Bartecki is also a great artist, I think, and sound artist and also engineer. So he uses a lot of sound sources to create then abstract composition, but sometimes the sources are extremely natural. So I think this is this kind of a ability to use your environment and change it into something else. So it's really great.
But I think you said it's possible with the link to get this short video, so we can research it later then as well.
Yeah.
Is anything that two of you would like to ask each other? Because that was originally the idea, that somehow we get in contact. So Mechthild and Joanna, how about you?
Yes, so I'd love to speak to Joanna. There were so many sides where it resonates. I didn't focus focus so much on my research, but the interdependence of us and what you said resonated so much, that how in our capitalist system, we went down the road of dominance, dominating over nature. That is how many things in the Bible are translated. You can actually wonder if it really was in the original text or if it's our interpretation of it. To Darwin, to our capitalist models, that there always has to be a winner. And rather than looking at the interdependence of us all, and that our destruction of the environment and also of our social fabric creates only destruction. If we are focusing more on collaboration and learn from nature rather than fighting it, we could build a completely different society. And I know this sounds very futuristic, and it's not that, you know, one artist is going to change that, but if that kind of thinking takes hold, I do think we can change our organization. And I think it is very necessary for us to live on this planet, because our exploitation of the planet maybe worked when there were 1 million people on this earth and it didn't have an impact, but with 7 billion, it clearly is not working.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. I think that that's why I think that it's extremely important nowadays to redefine our a lot of terms, like, you know, even this notion of organism or individual. There's nothing individual because even our own body is ecosystem. We have all the microbes. Without these microbes, you will not be able to survive even, I guess, 1 minute. And and also when we think about such concept like progress, what does it mean, progress? How nature think about productivity and progress, and what does it mean, growth? So I think this is the kind of important questions, how natural systems deal with the resources, and how we are, and because I think that, you know, the most important thing nowadays is to unlock all these closed systems, and it doesn't matter if it is a capitalistic, communistic, or any other systems, because they are all really blocked. And I think that I don't know if we will be able to unblock the systems on time.
I think on time is the important question.
Yeah, and
maybe I can say something. Sorry, did I interrupt?
No,
you? Well, coming from completely other way, not plants, but people. So what I notice, older I am, I notice more how much difference of my generation is to the newer generation in certain way. People are always the same. People are different. People develop. People do their things and so on. But there is something what concerns me very much when you talk, both of you, about this spreading of roots of natural dependence of, for example, tree to tree or forest all together, or in the city of these networks and so on. I'm thinking of something which is very traditional, and it used to be like that, and I'm sure both of you know that from your grandparents. We all lived before very much together, listening to each other's stories. Through that, being more involved with other people's problems, with other people's emotions, with other people's life's paths. So somehow we had these roots, we had these connections without knowing that. And of course, partially the system changed to this individuality, which didn't exist before. There was other problems before. So I don't say all time was better time, but in this sense, grandparents, parents, children, grandchildren had much more in common before. They didn't travel so much. They didn't go away from their homes. So it existed, this kind of, I feel like that. And through that, we understood us better because we had always somebody to ask, to help, to rely on. And I think today people are very solo. They don't feel so much. Not everybody, I cannot talk globally. So it concerns me, your both works with this India, for example, where there is so many millions of people and losing somehow a way of understanding how all this exists, to your presentation of using media to show this natural connections and lines and so on. So I'm optimistic person, so I really think these works that you do is something that can really bring to these new generations awareness, and it is somehow happening already. So it is somehow very little, but you know, something is growing, and these are little seeds that you are planting. And I think these little seeds is something that we hope, and maybe even this terrible pandemic is something which show us how much we rely on the whole world and the whole what we are. So it is really interesting to watch your works and to see how much it is possible to understand something about that.
If I can say something just to add to your, yes, please. I did again a whole paper of notes, but when you say we had those roots, tradition, our grandparents, now we are living the tree that came out of those roots. And then Mechthild mentioned futuristic kind of utopia. So my question is, which direction we are having? Because if those roots resulted with such a tree we are living now, it means that something was wrong with the roots, the traditional roots. That's my opinion. And then when we say futuristic, so are we progressing towards a greater awareness? Because what I see now that is kind of developing very strongly is the crisis of subjectivity. Now we have this COVID pandemic that kind of show that people are completely unaware of what's going on. So people are denying that there is climate change going on. So we have to act momently, and people are still not believing that the thing is happening. So what I think we are actually living, we are living the forest as an expression of tourism. So we are talking about forests, trees from an urban center. So we are going to a kind of exotic forest. Let's say this forest in Bangalore. Bangalore has 10 million people. That's Google information.
Yeah. 12 then, actually, I think already.
Yes, yeah. And then we are talking about some trees in the center of the city, not questioning the urbanization. Why so many people left their forests, their villages, and why they are in those cities. So we have to discuss the industrialization. And now we are in this fourth industrialization. We are about to automate everything. So what's happening? And then Joanna mentioned symbiosis, symbiosis with the AGI, artificial general intelligence, or even further kind of, I don't know how they call it, super intelligence. So, but okay, I don't fear this super intelligence. I fear the human interpretation of artificial intelligence, the Pentagon reading of it. We are going to use it for your good, not for the bad. So what I see here, just to conclude my short expose, that the system, this artificial intelligence, is going to be used to optimize this risky subjectivity in order to still kind of objective reality, no? Because our conscience is in crisis. We don't read things well. So the system is going to instill one way of looking at things, in order to protect the system, because now we are in a crisis. You know, people, it's already happening. You know, Facebook, on internet, censorship, fact checking, all these things. There is a need for such a check, but it's going to go further. They're going to check everything. So that's something that is happening. So I don't see actually art as relevant. I'm an artist. Sorry, I'm teaching art, so don't understand me wrongly. But it's irrelevant if it only happens as an aesthetic media. Okay, maybe we are kind of spreading awareness, but I think it's more kind of nostalgia. It's more kind of a tourism. We are kind of not participating in real decisions. The real decisions are happening somewhere else. So is it possible to be relevant as an artist today, to say something relevant in this relation, or just to visualize or aestheticize the process that you can't actually stop? So this is my kind of really short question. But
I think that Tomislav, you touched so many problems, and well, it's so many actually very important. And I would maybe break it to a few if I would like to comment on some of them. I think that artists alone, of course, like any other alone, will not be able to do anything. Also, as a group, the art will not change the world without the cooperation with other social groups, with scientists, NGOs, and teachers, and so forth. And of course, I think that it is not the crisis of our consciousness, but it's a crisis of the system, and also our communication tools and communication networks. What I mean out of and somehow, you know, I would like to relate to also to Ingeborg, because well, we all remember the beginning of internet, yeah, when we started to use it, and all this hope, oh, now you will be all connected, you know, you will have all these possibilities, and it will enforce democratization and information and freedom and so forth. And very soon we find ourselves in this kind of a let's say, this name, oligopolization of this network. So all the information and information process is in hands of just a few corporations, yeah? Which are in control of what is coming to your home, to your computer. We have all these algorithms which are enhancing, in fact, this echo chamber and information bubbles, and somehow we failed. So of course, there's now I think that it is extremely important moment in our let's say civilization progress or changes, if you will go towards the totalitarian control, as we have the example what is happening in China, but it's also known by Facebook, Twitter, and other YouTube, and so forth. Or we will choose these other systems based on decentralization, as we have in nature. So there is the models that we can follow, but how to do it, I don't know, because as I underline, it is actually very difficult to change the system because it's all extremely blocked. But I have a hope as an artist that, of course, I think that art is not for just aesthetic pleasure and so forth, but we as an artist, I think that, you know, the most important thing in our times, when I think about how to close the system, is the communication between people, between different milieux. And I think that artists can play in that extremely important role. So I think that we have to leave also our, you know, safe artistic museums, galleries, and so forth, and be present in different congresses with your art, with inspiring people, even, you know, going to different environment, making your art, and creating the links between different societies. And the other thing is education. I think that this, if we want to change the world, it's through children. In fact. So if we introduce in the schools this holistic thinking, not through disciplines, that art is something different from mathematics, geography, and so forth, but is a tool to understand the different processes and to create links. So the kids are not learning, you know, different disciplines, but they're learning through projects and problems, which are much wider. I think in this kind of interdisciplinary way, then I hope that we can win the race between the catastrophe and let's say a better future towards we think about. Yeah, so I think that artists has extremely important role, and we just have to activate ourselves, and not only in artistic environment, but in very different environments.
You mentioned something which is, I think, obvious, but still we have to mention that. And this is that scientists need very much artists more and more, not only because of some abstract or whatever projects showing. I remember even when I was at MIT in 85 to 88, that was really neat to see how the artists can bring their intuition, their art view, to interpolate to thinking or to developing certain things. And it took many years. And the last years, 10 years or whatsoever, it's really developing more. So I think in that sense, there is one chance, because science and art and technology can, with gaining together, they can bring certain things. And the other thing, what you said about children, I think with children is happening a lot. My point of view is that maybe it's even danger, because the children are so much now over, especially these well-educated children. I don't say there is much more millions of children who are not in that sense educated, but those who are really having this power, parents and power countries, they are really now doing something or acting something. And the danger I found is that could be another extreme, which means it's not necessarily bringing only good, but it's kind of how to make this balance between those children growing with this awareness and the whole thing. So there are two different things: art, technology, and education. And this, which you very well said, it's necessary. Education is always necessary.
Yeah, I would like to caution on one end. I do agree that education is important, and the three of us are all teaching, at least young adults, not small children, but we absolutely do not have the time to wait for them to be in a position of power to change something. So I think it's our responsibility to at least start the changes. And I mean, seeing people like Greta Thunberg gives me hope, where actually one individual pushes a movement to a lot more efficiency. There were many environmentalists before her and also after her, but one person was actually able to sort of move something, and I hope this is going to go further. There were so many points that I actually sort of made mental notes during what you all said. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to touch on them all, but when I start with Ingeborg's idea of, let's say, our small local networks from 100 years ago versus our global networks now, I do think that the global networks have the advantage of connecting us to other cultures and resulting hopefully in more tolerance of each other because we have more knowledge of each other. But the disadvantage, as you said, is also true. We pick the people we collaborate with. So maybe then I have more in common with an interactive artist in Japan than with my grandmother who doesn't know the internet. So when we were in very small circles, let's say in a village, we couldn't choose our neighbors and our relatives. So we had to deal with very diverse type of people that we maybe wouldn't get along with or wouldn't choose to live with, but at least we knew about them. And in our globalized environment, we can choose our connection and our friends. And that way we have a wide geographical spread, but we may actually be narrowing our exposure to only one type of people, which leads to these bubbles and leads to these echo chambers. And then to talk about the oligarchy of the internet, I'm not sure how to break that. Even with art, I think I love collaborations between disciplines, be they science, be they on the humanist side. I think it's very important, but I'm not sure what effect we really have. Sometimes I think art is just used as window dressing by some companies. Oh, we're going to invite some like Art am Bau, Kunst am Bau project, you know, where you have a little bit of not greenwashing, but art washing, but in the effect, the decision makers stay within their system. But I still cannot completely give up hope. Otherwise, you know, I would just stop making art and stop doing anything and maybe paint beautiful little oil paintings as my own aesthetic pastime. But I still believe we can make some change, not me individually, but like as Joanna also said, in networks, in planting the seed in our classes with our colleagues and trying to get to a point where a different kind of thinking can set in. I see a discrepancy also to what Tomislav said. We have developed our technology and we can do so much more damage. And we have so much, you know, our technology helps us amplify our opinions, be they good or be they bad. You know, before 100 years ago, maybe you say something really controversial in a pub and maybe you get knocked in the chin for it. And now we say it and it maybe kills people in, you know, across the globe for what you said or what you started. So I think our technology has evolved, but our ethics on what we know is responsible behavior and what is, you know, tolerance and what is respect doesn't seem to have evolved at the same speed. And that's how we have this discrepancy between what people do to each other online when they think it's anonymous. And, you know, there's so many things and I could just freeze and not do anything. That's why I picked like one small project and say, okay, if I focus on that one thing, maybe I can move something, maybe I can inspire some people. If I try to address all these problems that technology has brought and that our economic system has brought, I feel it's too much and then you want to just give up. And I don't want to get to that point.
If I can just add something to this, because I think it's very important. Thank you for these words, because you mentioned ethics. So that's something I forgot to mention before, because in order to change the future, I'm really deeply, I think that we should go back to the origin. So the origin of the problem is the tree again, but the tree of knowledge. So it's an ethical problem between good and evil. So to do or not to do. So to do things or not to do things. So we choose, as Joanna said, Darwinism, to be gods or masters of our lives. So we are deciding what's good, what's bad. And it's not a question of communication. So if you have, let's say, an evil guy who wants to kill you, there is no lack of communication. You can't explain something to him because he wants to kill you. He's going to tell it to you in your language, in Polish. I want to kill you. So in that moment, that's Zizek discussed that point. So in one moment, there is no, it's not only communication. Somebody has an evil agenda, or he wants to do something that kind of destroys the planet, destroys you, destroys the nature. So the question is, how to go back to this ethical dilemma. Is it something that can be instilled by the system, as we now are witnessing, that the system wants to instill this, what's good, what's evil, or it should be this measure. We have now measures against the COVID pandemic. I was thinking a lot about this today, so somebody is accepting the measure or not, but they see it as a repression. Because why? Because they don't have the measure in themselves. And that measure in yourself is called ethical conscience, or because it's savjest. Conscience.
Yeah.
Conscience. So if you don't have conscience, then the system is going to rise repression, and then you're going to have this Chinese syndrome, who is going to getting bigger and bigger. So it's something connected. This kind of fight for freedom and for your human rights in such a situation where, because people are aware that something big is happening, but they don't know what. And so they would like to change the government in order to stop this entropy that is kind of few thousand years old. So we can't stop it in this point, because it's a result from all these roots that were deeply planted thousands of years ago. So now we are kind of harvesting our deeds. And how to stop? I think it's impossible. Let's say I'm kind of very positive, but I believe, let's say, in God. I believe so. My only hope is that there is a force outside of our perception that can do a kind of complete reset, not this reset from Davos, but a complete reset of all the things driven by love. So if there is no love, if the love is not the force for this change, then we have a problem. And I don't see it. I don't see the world evolving in that direction. I just see it. Okay, atheists have always this need to say we can do something. There is still time to stop it, because there is no other solution, no other hope. So if you don't do it, it's not going to happen. So I understand Zizek, Harari, Varoufakis, all these Chomsky, all these people are kind of trying to find a solution. But I have to say there is no solution, because it's too deep. It's too deep. It can't be stopped in this moment. It should be stopped in the beginning. So the only thing you can do is to have your own perception, to work on yourself. Now I'm sounding like Peterson. It's not Peterson, but I think that we should work on our conscience. And my hope, let's say, is in a force that lies outside of this world. Other people don't believe. Many people don't believe, or most people don't believe, and they still expect some miracle from AI, from some government. But I kind of don't have any hope in that sense. So this is my, let's say, last sentence.
That is sort of sad, but I don't think the world has ever been 100% good or 100% bad. The question is just who is the majority, or who has the controls. You had people who were murderers 1,000 years ago, and you have people who are murderers today, and you will not be able to stop that, but you can help shape the general perception of what's possible and who controls this. I don't have any hope that any new technology is not going to be controlled by our current system, but that's why I do think it's important that artists are involved. If I say, well, Amazon is going to make this into something commercial anyway, or the right wing is going to, some cyber criminal is going to take this over, but then I let them. And I think what is important is that we still have a voice. And it's like, well, if these systems are new and they're being shaped, it's important to have some other voices. And with some luck, I cannot guarantee it, there at least maybe we help shape these systems or leave doors open for different forms of communication that are not just only commercial, or that are not just only negative growth and risk for everything politics. I'm not so naive to think that I'm going to be more powerful than Mr. Bezos, but I do think I can, on a smaller level, I can hope to have some influence. And if there are enough of us and we do it all in our environments, I hope that we can move the dial, even if just a little bit. And I think I need that hope. Maybe I just want to pat myself on my shoulder and say I did something, whether it's effective or not, and buy myself a good conscience. I hope it's not just that, but it has crossed my mind. What does Joanna think?
Well, I've got, also kind of a few thoughts about it, because on one hand side, we know very well, like Tomislav said, if you want to change the world, you have to start from yourself. Yeah. And if you want the world to be ethics and empathic, you have to also develop this empathy in yourself. And then, it's somehow you share that, what you create by yourself. But on the other hand side, I think it's also very important to act socially, like Mechthild said. And I think especially, us being, successful artists, having the established situation at university and so forth, we can open the doors for others. We can change, we can initiate some activities. And I think this is also our moral duty, let's say, to not concentrate only on our projects, but through our projects to engage others. So this is the kind of a way and create this networks and I believe that through these networks, that will be not only, as I mentioned, not only networks of information flow, but of interaction. And maybe, I would like also I have been thinking about this time of COVID, which got so many different phases in our psychology and also our social environments. And I was somehow surprised by young people, because I was thinking, okay, now we are isolated, but we have, our computers, we have our mobiles, laptop, tablets, and so forth. Anyway, the young people all the time, they have their nose in their mobile. So what's the problem? And it turned out that it is a problem. Yeah, that we develop the tools, but we develop our social behaviors, and suddenly, the amount of young people who are going through the deep depression, they are on drugs to help them going out. So there are all this. So suddenly it turned out that the technology is not the only way, and this roots that Ingeborg was speaking, and that need of interpersonal relation is something real. And you can see also how the young people, they have the need of nature also to come back. So this is a very interesting. On one hand side, I think that I don't know if maybe too strong word, but I think that somehow we also failed through these technologies and so forth. When we think about the crisis of psychological crisis, social crisis, health system crisis, everything is somehow the crisis, not even mentioning our ecological thing, but also think that we thought that, the technological communication will help. And maybe it's a matter of time. The networks in nature develops very long, and it takes time. Maybe we wanted to do something with use the shortcuts. I don't know.
Okay, I would like slowly to end our meeting, which is incredibly fruitful, and it seems we could really discuss that much further. I would like to end it with something which is my thought for the end, and this is that we are in development. Technology is fast, but we are not so fast. And I think the development and the time will show us where are we going as usual. So I think our future is that we continue our talks, our work, our good work, and coming back to individual, each of us should do the best what one can, and we are a little seed, a little thing of the whole net of the whole universe, and I think this is what only which we sure we can do. So I would say thank you so much for your participation, and I'm sure we will meet soon again, at least in the beginning or the middle next year, all together, and maybe have some kind of overview of these different views, different work of art, and different usage of technology and media and communication science and technology and so on. So till then will be also development, will be also new things. And so thank you so much, and please keep in contact and keep in touch.